Good evening. Happy Sunday Funday. Hope everyone's having a good day. I'm slowly getting things together here. I think we're all working. I think the audio is working. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, give me a quick hello in the chat if you will. Let me know you can hear me okay. Because just because I think I have it working doesn't always mean that I do. Hi, Will. Good evening. Good to see you on tonight. We're going to be talking, as you can tell on the screen, about courage and what it is a little bit, but more so where it comes from. And looking at an example from the book of Ezra. So we talked this morning about serving. And hi, Miss Judy. Hi, Carol. Good to see y'all on as well. We talked this morning about serving, and I mentioned that sometimes when God asks us to do something, it might be a little scary. I mean, even if it's something small like calling people or sending cards or whatever, it may seem small in our minds sometimes. In God's eyes, it's not. It's everything is equally important, but it also sometimes can be a bit out of our comfort zone, I guess is a better way to put it. Maybe not scary so much, but just outside of what we're comfortable with. So that's why I was kind of thinking along those lines of courage. How do we, where do we find the courage to do some of these things sometimes? So we're going to talk about that tonight. Our game's going to center kind of around things people do that I'm not even sure bravery is the right word for some of these. We'll talk about that as we go through. Some of it might be more of a lack of thinking about things than it is courage. But we'll talk about it as we go. That's one of the unique things about courage. Sometimes is we mistake foolishness for courage. But I'll let you choose on some of these. I was just trying to find things I thought would be kind of fun to discuss and see if you would do some of these things. So, all right. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. Hopefully some other people will comment and let us know they're here. And we'll see how it goes. But we're going to start off with a quick game. And I'm going to show you some activities. And I want you to tell me in the chat. Sometimes the chat will be on the screen. Sometimes it won't. I'm going to have to pull it off a few times so the picture comes through better. But whatever you put in chat, at times will be on the screen. So just a warning about that. If you don't want to be seen on the screen, then don't comment. I guess I don't have any way to limit some and not others. But I'm going to show you an activity, and I want you to tell me whether you would do this activity or not, or maybe if you have, tell me that you did it, if you liked it, whatever. So let me find. Can't seem to multitask here today. All right. Hang gliding. This one was this is an activity that I used to think I would want to do. To me, that always seems so peaceful. You get this I don't know, wing on your back, and you go run off the side of a cliff, and then you just kind of float to a lower level. It seems relatively safe. I mean, gliders work, right? I've flown a lot of paper airplanes. And usually when you see them, if you're running off of a cliff, oftentimes where there's cliffs, there is beautiful scenery. So it just always struck me as it being a very interesting thing. As I've gotten older, I'm pretty sure I couldn't do that now. I would not be able to run off that cliff with this contraption strapped around me. And then you can see in the background there's, I guess, what are called paragliders. A little bit different from the hang glider there. Excuse me. But kind of the same idea. You jump off of a cliff, and then use this thing to glide gracefully and luxuriously to the ground. Will says, that's a no on the hang gliding. No, thank you. Chrissy said would not go hang gliding. See, that's where I'm at now. But I don't know. 10, 15 years ago, that was on my list of things I would love to do for some reason. It's a good thing, though, that I've changed my mind, because I did do some research here and found out that hang gliding is a fairly dangerous activity. Carol says, how strapped? See, Carol, that was the thing. I mean, this thing is actually like strapped to you. It's a part of you once you jump. So that's why I felt kind of like, okay, I've got my wings. I just glide to the ground. So you're pretty much strapped to that contraption. Miss Judy says, no way. If God wanted me to fly, he would have given me wings. That's a pretty good way to look at it too. But apparently, about 1 in every 1,000 gliders will perish. So to me, that's not very good odds. So I'm kind of glad that I've changed my mind about this whole hang gliding thing. I think one of the reasons for that is hang gliding is apparently even more dangerous than things like skydiving, which we'll talk about in a moment. Because like here, you don't really have any controls. There's no real steering other than just kind of leaning the thing to try to get your wings to change their angle. And generally, often with cliffs, you also have jagged rocks and things of that nature. So I guess inherently it's more dangerous. So yeah, 1 in a 1,000 isn't good enough odds for me. And again, this is one of those. I don't know if you call that courage or if you call that just crazy, but that was one of those dangerous things. It would certainly take a lot of something to be able to jump off that cliff, especially now that I know that a lot of people die doing this. It would take a lot of something to be able to jump off of that. All right, next item. While we're talking about that, things that are actually dangerous. I'm gonna take the comments off for just a second so you can see all this picture here. Oops, the wrong one. Is something that looks like it wouldn't be all that dangerous. Motocross racing, and I know people that do this, and you see it a lot on TV. So I guess I thought it was kind of along more of the average type things, but apparently it has some of the same odds. 1 in 1,000 motorbike racers will die from an accident related injury there. So anybody here like to race the motorbikes? And I'm guessing they probably there are different things you do with them. I know not everyone who rides a motorcycle has those poor of an odds, but motocross is what that was listed as. Those came from a couple of different sources. One was from top10s.net, had a listing of the deadliest hobbies. Some of these came from, or many of these, I guess, came from the National Center for Health Statistics. So that's where some of these sources come from. All right, so comments going back up here now. I gotta see what everybody's saying. All right. Carol says no on the motocross racing. Will says nope on the motorbike. Christy, nope, no motocross racing for me. I would break every bone in my body. So all right, so that's one that I was just not all that interested in from the beginning. So I didn't have to worry about that, but I do know a lot of people that do that, so I was shocked at the odds there. I kind of wonder, I'd love to know more about what makes it dangerous, if it's like the actual racing itself, because you're bunched up into these groups and people are landing on top of each other, or if it's because, some of the guys I have seen on TV where they do like the stunts and stuff when they're jumping, if that's what kind of drives that number up or what. But that one kind of caught me by surprise in terms of how dangerous it is. All right. Along those same lines of racing, what about Grand Prix racing? Would you like to be a Grand Prix racer? Drive one of those cars like you see on the screen there? These are the ones that get really fast. Like these are faster than NASCAR cars. But they're also the ones that go through all those turns. So they have to slow down a good bit so that they're slower than NASCAR, and then speed up again on the straightway so where they're faster. And so Miss Judy said, no way, too old. Grandson Stephen would like to do that. I can see Stephen wanting to do that. Stephen is one of those that loves the fast motorcycles, cars, that sort of thing. So I can see Stephen wanting to do that. Excuse me. All right. So any takers on the Grand Prix driving while you're doing that? The odds of dying in doing this activity are actually 1 in 100. So if you really like to be dangerous, then this is one of the most dangerous. Yeah, Miss Judy, I'm with you. I don't really care for going fast. That's not my thing. I guess if I'm in an airplane, I'm okay because I'm encapsulated. I don't care how fast it's going, but if I'm on something where I'm actually seeing everything go by real quick, I don't want to go fast. So yeah, 1 in 100, according to the National Center for Health Statistics, for Grand Prix racing. So fortunately, I guess there's not too many people that do it, so you don't see as many fatalities mentioned, but as a ratio, that's a pretty dangerous sport. All right, no takers on that one either yet. All right. Well, we're talking about racing. What about this kind of racing? The I don't even know what you call these compared to the other bikes. These are the speed motorcycles, the ones where they race on the tracks, similar to the Grand Prix and stuff. Anybody wanting to do this? Will says no Formula One racing. Those cars are temperamental. I can see that. I've watched a few races since Hunter's gotten interested in watching that stuff, and those cars do seem to do some strange things. And yeah, risk is too high. I agree with that. Miss Judy says no, still on the motorcycle, this type of motorcycle. I'm with you on that one. This one doesn't appeal to me at all. To me, this one feels more dangerous. I don't have any statistics on this particular type of motorcycle racing and couldn't find it. But to me, I mean, if you're racing on concrete and you don't even have anything to hold you in, that to me just feels like it's even worse. I mean, you crash in that, and there's not a whole lot helping you out there. So, all right. Again, I don't know if any of these are courage or something else, but still, that idea of something that people do that kind of takes a special something to make you want to fire that thing up and go. Here she says no to the motorcycle. All right. What about this one? Rock climbing. Anybody here interested or were interested? Or the funny thing here for me is years ago I would have been interested in rappelling. That's where you're going down. You're just kind of going with the ropes from top to bottom. Going up, I have no interest. I don't really want to climb and hang on to a rock. You see some of those pictures where people are looking down over the edge of the cliff. Ms. Judy says couldn't hold the bike up. I had probably the same problem as you. Those bikes are heavy, and you're leaning that thing way over and getting that speed up and back down. And I'd probably have a hard time keeping that bike up myself. So, all right, Christy says she might do rock climbing. She's just afraid. No, getting down's easy, Christy. That's what gravity's for. It's the going up that's hard. You see these pictures where, like this one in particular, where they're going up there. That ledge goes out again at the end. They've got to kind of somehow go back over their head to climbing. Yeah, Carol says no climbing, but rappelling okay. Miss Judy says she don't like high places. This is definitely one of those things. If you don't like heights, would not be a good thing. Which Will says he's not good with heights, so nope on the rock climbing. And Chrissy says he just couldn't look down, so as long as she's going up. So that's all right. Well, what I'll do next time we go somewhere that has a rock wall, we'll let Christy practice on the going up and see how it does. Maybe we can get some video for Sunday Funday sometime. And field trip for the Allen family. So, all right. So, let's see. Rock climbing odds here, 1 in 1,750. So, a little bit better than hang gliding or motocross racing. But still not very good odds. Yeah, there's a lot of accidents there on this rock climbing stuff. So, not a real safe sport. And it gets even worse if you look at Nepal only. Nepal has some of the great peaks and things that people would want to climb. And if you're rock climbing in Nepal, you have a 1 in 167 chance of dying. So that would make it the most dangerous place to rock climb in the world. So if you do happen to decide to do this, don't do it in Nepal until you are really good at it, or just wanting some worse odds. All right, speaking of dangerous things, what about this? Let me see if I can get the comments off for a second. Anybody going to sit on that swing? We mentioned the heights as the last one was kind of one of those things to be concerned about. So, you got any takers to go sit on this swing and kind of go out over this? I guess that's a waterfall in front of her going down to the gorge below her. Anybody want to sit here? Chrissy says absolutely not, but you love waterfalls. Yeah, Carol, this would be a big note for me too. I'm heights are one of those things for me that's a little bit weird. They don't always bother me, so it's kind of depends on the circumstance. That's one of those where heights would definitely bother me. Like I was sitting there on that thing, not strapped in, not a chance. And the older I get, the more heights do bother me. That's one thing I've noticed as well. I did a lot better with heights when I was younger. Will says, oops, I got the comments off. Hang on, let me get these comments back on the screen. You guys aren't getting to enjoy this. Will said, that's a hard nope on the swing, not without a harness around my... I'm with you on that. And Miss Judy says, definitely not. All right, everybody's kind of agreeing on this one that none of us are going to be sitting out hanging over the gorge. No matter how peaceful that scene may look, my heart would be racing in fear. So, all right. Now, an interesting thing. Anybody interested in boxing? It's a common sport. You see it a lot. I wouldn't have thought it would be on one of the lists of most dangerous hobbies that people do, or some people don't do it just for a hobby. Obviously, it's a career for some people, but there's a lot of people that do boxing. Do you know that 1 in 2,200 boxers perish from a fight-related injury? I had no idea the statistics were that bad for boxing as an activity. So so yeah, anybody here willing to jump in the ring and throw some punches? And I'm pausing a little bit because I know I got a little bit of a lag here. I'm getting a little red connection on the internet. Whenever it rains outside, I get poor internet connection. I don't know what that has to do with it, but Miss Judy says, Chrissy says, no boxing for me. Miss Judy says, nope. So I think some people enjoy kind of that idea of getting in and just hitting, that release some energy there. But you also have to remember that you're taking some hits there too. So Carol says, I try boxing. Okay. So yeah, just kind of different people kind of see that as a different thing. I'm more thinking, okay, I'm probably going to take more hits than I give. So I'm going to pass on the boxing. Not something that ever appealed to me. I do remember one time when I was young, going over to somebody's house, and they had some boxing gloves there, and like, here, try this. And I put the things on, and they punched me in the face. And I'm like, well, this is no fun at all. So maybe that's why I've never really cared about boxing as a participant. I for some reason, I don't watch boxing much at all, but I can appreciate it. I like to watch it at the Olympic level. I used to always watch it when the Olympics would come on. I would watch the boxing for that. And just as a side note, glad each one of you are here tonight, because apparently there's a big fight tonight. A entertainer has challenged a retired boxer to a match. Basically, I guess so that they both get some money, no matter who wins and who gets hurt. But not me. I don't want to be somebody's punching bag. Not even for just a big payday, I don't think. But yeah, odds 1 in 2,200. Not very good stats there. Yeah, Miss Midgery said people get hurt bad. Yeah, it is. Will says no boxing, wrestling, or martial arts. So yeah, I'm with you on that. None of that appeals to me. I'll stay out of any kind of ring they want to put together there. All right, next thing. Excuse me. Something that is a little bit safer than boxing, apparently, from the odds of dying here, is base jumping. now, who would have thought that? Who would have thought that base jumping was safer than boxing in terms of the number of people that die from the sport, per the number that are doing it? But base jumping has the odds of 1 in 2,317, so not much different, but still slightly better. So if those that aren't familiar with base jumping, this fella has just run and jumped off of that cliff, and he has a parachute on his back. Yeah, mid-air planking. That's what it looks like, isn't it? Yeah, he's kind of already laid out, letting the air kind of push him up and get him ready for his parachute or whatever. And this would be a hard no for me. Excuse me. For some reason, as I mentioned before, the hang gliding seemed safe, even though it was worse. But this just doesn't feel good, jumping off of a stationary object with a backpack on. And I guess from excuse me, as far as base jumping goes, sometimes people jump off of buildings, sometimes it's off of cliffs and things like that. So that probably plays into it as well. Depends on what people are jumping off of, because you got wind bringing you right back into a building or into a rock. It's easy to see how that could be really dangerous. Carol says no base jumping. And all right, so yeah, 1 in 2,300, but hey, safer than boxing. So if you ever decide you want to go boxing, say, hey, maybe I should do base jumping instead. And Miss Judy says, God gave me enough sense not to do that. I kind of have to agree with you on this one, Miss Judy. That one to me just doesn't. I can't imagine who said we should just jump off of this thing with a parachute on. So yeah, that's not my speed. But speaking of parachutes, you know what the more general way of using a parachute. Who would do this? Anybody interested in skydiving? I have a Facebook friend, someone I'd met online, so I don't know them in person, but did interacted with them a fair amount. That yesterday actually went skydiving for the first time. They loved it. I know some other people that have done skydiving. One even had an accident in skydiving. So anybody interested in jumping out of an airplane with a parachute? Which, oddly enough, to me makes more sense. If I'm going to jump with a parachute, I want to be a little higher than jumping off of a cliff or a building or something like that. This is kind of one that I guess there was a time I probably would have done this, maybe if I had the opportunity. But now, the way my heights have gotten as I get older, I'm not so sure I could do that now. The interesting thing here, if you want to know the odds of survival, skydiving, actually, the odds of dying, I guess, is what they give you. They'll give you the odds of survival. They give you the odds of dying. 1 in 500,000. No, I'm sorry, that's not the right one. 1 in 160,000. So think about that. I mean, this is like multiple times safer than boxing, according to the numbers. Will says I consider, but only in tandem with it. See, I think I'd want to do that too. You know, first time you jump out of a plane, it's nice to have someone doing it that's holding on to you or like, as attached to you, strapped to you, that already knows what they're doing. So that would have to be kind of the way I think I would want to do it as well. Miss Judy says no way. The plane was on fire, then they should consider it. Okay, yeah. And Chrissy says maybe tandem as well, and then she says another maybe there. So, but actually, you know, I was amazed at that. 1 in 160,000 dies. That's still not real good odds when you think about it. But you know, it's you know, 9 times or not time. It's multiple times better than boxing or gliding or motorcycle racing, rock climbing even. So I was just shocked to see that skydiving was that much safer than some of those other activities. So that's kind of an interesting idea there. One thing I do want to point out, though, I guess the nice thing about skydiving is if you jump out and your parachute doesn't work, you actually have the rest of your life to get it fixed. So that's okay. Probably not funny to people that have had accidents. Fortunately, the only person I know that had a skydiving accident, they survived it. So I don't know if anyone that's died from that. But yeah, it's a little maybe humor there. All right, so speaking of jumping out of things, people say they would want to be strapped to something or somebody. Here you got a good harness on. This of course is bungee jumping. Can't see as well from the picture, but he's tied to a bungee cord there. So what about bungee jumping? Anybody up for jumping off of a bridge or a lot of times when you see the bungee jumping, they're off of these big cranes that just kind of go up and have the thing attached to it there. Anybody willing to bungee jump or have done it already? You might have people here that have done that. That's a little more accessible. Wait a little bit longer, see if I got any bungee jumpers here. We might actually have a story in the group here. Somebody's been bungee jumping. Okay, she says no bungee jumping for her. All right. You do put a lot of trust in, if you're bungee jumping, you're putting a lot of trust in equipment. That's my only real concern with it is, you're expecting that stuff's going to work. And when I just think about the equipment I have, lawnmowers, trimmers, chainsaws, stuff like that, relying on equipment's not something that I'm keen to do, I guess, a lot of times. Especially equipment that somebody else is maintaining, which is generally the case if you're bungee jumping. You're kind of going with this outfitter that's doing it. So Carol says over water only. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, that what you're jumping over makes a little bit of a difference too, I think. If you're jumping over concrete, then, maybe not so much. Miss Judy says no way. Don't want to be tied to a bunch of rubber bands. So yeah, I can see that too. The interesting thing here is bungee jumping is actually one of the most safer of all these things. It's actually the 1 in 500,000. So only 2 in a million die, which still seems, still not real good odds. That's, but if you say, hey, it's a 1 in a million type of thing where they're saying it's kind of rare, this is actually a 2 in a million. So it's even more rare than that. All right, other activities. I need to keep moving here. Just keep waiting for comments to come in. I enjoy watching what you guys say. All right, what about this scuba diving? Let's see if I can get these comments out of the way for a second. Anybody want to go scuba diving down with some of the big fish? Scuba diving, I was surprised to find out, has a 1 in 200,000 chance of dying, which means it's not even as safe as bungee jumping. Not even half as safe as bungee jumping. So that actually surprised me when I saw that. Miss Judy thought about the bungee jumping. If it broke, I would drown. Can't say, okay. So Miss Judy doesn't want to go bungee jumping at all, but especially doesn't want to go bungee jumping over water then. Carol says no on the scuba diving. So I was surprised by the fact that scuba is 1 in 200,000, which I guess is still pretty safe. I mean, when you look at all these things and where they're at, that's kind of apparently fairly safe. But I was just surprised compared to like something like skydiving. It's only marginally safer than skydiving, and it's way safer than. I mean, it's not. Let me think this through. Skydiving is a little more risky. But bungee jumping is like twice as safe as scuba diving. That baffled me, and I guess I understand because there are a lot of things to think about in scuba diving. But Miss Yu says, "No way, fish are bigger than me." Yeah, so I enjoy scuba diving. I've never swam with anything that big. Obviously, never had to be around something that was that dangerous. But yeah, scuba diving is something I enjoy, but had to stop and look at it and go, "Wow, you don't think about some of those things when you're doing them." I do want to brag on my my littles that aren't so little anymore. They did the helmet diving when we were in the Philippines, so you probably can't see much on that picture there, but the 3 shorter ones are Hunter, Jaden, and Katie, and the other one is me. And we climbed out of a boat, put these underwater diver helmets on, and they walked around on the bottom of the seafloor there. I don't know how far we were, probably 20 feet or so. And then that's me on the right, one of my trips there. So just had to kind of show some pictures there from the family thing. Let's get these comments back on. So scuba diving. All right, what's next? Oops, got to get the comments back off for a second. What about this though? Now this is to me is like a whole new level of scuba diving. I love being underwater. I love seeing the fish. I love having them swim right up to you and all that. But this. Yeah, Will just said I'd scuba with a group of people in shallow water, but no sharks. See, sharks, I guess I don't worry so much about. It depends on the types of sharks and stuff like that, and also the depth. You mentioned the shallower water, and yeah, you're 60 feet or shallower. You're not worrying a whole lot about it. You might have some sharks there, but they're not going to do a whole lot. But you get down to those deep water where the sharks are, excuse me, really, really big. Yeah, no Shark Tank. No, don't put me down here with they're kind of looking at me as, could I get that snack out of the container? Excuse me. Let me get these comments back up. Everybody's missing out on everybody's comments there. So yeah, that'd be a big no for me as well. Not necessarily the sharks, but the deep sharks right there with it being inside of a sardine can, just waiting for them to decide to eat me. Talking about being inside things that sometimes people don't like scuba because of the claustrophobic feel and you're in the water and everything. What about spelunking? Anybody here interested in going exploring a cave? So Miss Judy says nope, maybe in a cage. Okay, so would consider it with that. What about the spelunking? Anybody interested in going to exploring a cave? And just kind of, where does this thing lead? wonder what's down here, taking your flashlight and just kind of going exploring. Carol says no to the caves. This is another one that at one point I thought would be real interesting. Know some people that do spelunking and all, but I don't know now if I would be all that interested. I'm not a big fan of cold, damp, tight places and things that like to live in the dark areas of the earth. Chrissy said, no, I've been in 3 caves. That was plenty for me. Okay. I remember 2 of those. One was in Big Thunder, and the other was the one up above Birmingham there, but Rickwood Caverns, but I don't remember the other one. DeSoto. What's that?
DeSoto.
DeSoto, that's right. Okay, DeSoto. All right, so most people are saying no to spelunking there. All right. Yeah, no caverns, claustrophobia. And people do die while caving. That is true. You know, anything you have to wear like a rope or something to leave a trail behind you is a good indication that you're getting into dangerous territory there, you know. It's not always a good thing. Now this was an interesting one. What about parkour? Anybody here, ignoring the physical requirements here of being able to do some of these stunts they do, but parkour, you know, is where people like kind of use buildings and structures to I don't know really how to put it, to exercise, I guess. You know, they jump from building to building or from structure to structure. Here the guy's jumping from one truck to another. They kind of run up the side of walls and then jump to another wall while they're still getting their momentum going. Sometimes they'll jump over a ledge and way down off of a high ledge to another ledge. Anybody interested in doing parkour? I don't have any stats on spelunking or parkour, but parkour definitely seems dangerous, at least from the ones I see a lot of. I guess there's different ways of doing it, but jumping from one structure to another to me just generally seems dangerous. Trying to run up a wall, anything like that, I find it interesting. I definitely enjoy watching people that can do it. I'm going to get the camera situated here, but it's not something I would be interested in. Carol says, it sounds fun, but I would die on my first try. So that would be me. I don't know if it sounds fun. I don't know if I even want to try it, but I would definitely hurt myself quickly. All right, what about whitewater rafting? Anybody here go into some things that aren't quite as dramatic as skydiving or bungee jumping or those types of things? Anybody interested or has done whitewater rafting? I did look up the odds here because I was curious about that. I don't know why my camera's not focusing right. And this is just less than 1 per 100,000 people die doing this activity. So still fairly dangerous. Obviously, it depends on the river you're on. And they do rate them, so that helps. You can know I'm on a beginner course, so your odds are going to be a little bit better. And it's kind of bugging me. My camera's not focusing. So Will says no on parkour. I'll stick with the trampoline. Yeah, I'm good with that too. Yeah. So Miss Judy says she might would try it. Okay. So yeah, this whitewater rafting. This is actually a picture. Christy says she would whitewater raft. This is a picture of a trip I went on. That's actually me in the green shirt there in the front, if you can see it on your phone. And a friend of mine's in the second row, kind of behind me on the other side. That's Joe. And so I wanted to include that. Will says no rafting. Sensitive. Yeah, I can see where that would not be a fun thing. It's a rough ride. And in fact, this is us a few minutes later, and that's still me in the green shirt there, taking a dive over the front of the boat. And Joe's nowhere to be seen. He's already underneath the rapids there. And I think this one got all of us except for one person, I think, remained in the boat. So yeah, so that was actually a very fun trip. Not something I'd want to do a whole lot. When that thing threw us out of the boat, we into the water, those currents slammed me to the bottom of the river. I remember thinking, man, if I'd hit a rock right there or something, I could definitely see how people would get hurt. So, kind of an interesting thing to do. All right, running out of time here. It's taking a while longer than I thought. Keep the comments coming, though. I'm enjoying this. What about running of the bulls? You know, over in Pamplona, where they, I don't know if it's yearly or how often they do it, but every so often they block the streets off into this big long track, and they unleash bulls on the street, and people get out and run with them. So they call it the running of the bulls. Anybody interested in going to do that? It's never been on my bucket list, and I don't think it ever will be. Try to get this to focus. Excuse me. Got a little lag here, so I'm going to wait a moment to see if I get any takers on the running with the bulls. Anybody want to do it or have already done it? So no bulls for Carol. She says, nope, no way, can't run that fast. You know, an interesting thing is I looked up to see kind of what is the odds here of dying in this activity, and apparently, since they've started keeping track of this, there've only been 16 deaths recorded from this, and in the last five of those deaths have been since 1980. So statistically, this is safer than boxing. This is safer than I don't know how to do the math there, but it might even be safer than scuba diving, which is something I've actually done. Because they're not going to run with any bulls. See people get hit at rodeos. Looks like it would hurt real bad. See, I think that's the thing with this activity is it's not so much the death that's the impending thing. It's really more the getting gored and surviving it, like just the injuries and the hurt. I guess the only time people really get killed in this is if the bull gores them and happens to catch a lung or something with the horn. Other than that, it's more just injuries, but that's a lot of injuries. So yeah, no running with the bulls for me either. And then this last one, I'm going to move these comments over here. What about public speaking? We talked about some of these things that are kind of, out there, and some people like to do it, extreme sports, if you will. But then there's also these things that aren't so active that still can really frighten us. Anybody here not big on step into the mic and there's all these people out there waiting to hear you talk? Does that get anybody's heart racing a little bit there? That's one that I happen not to be so worried about, but I probably fear heights more than I would having to get up in front of people. But I know for a lot of people that is listed as their biggest fear is public speaking. So, all right. Unless I have a really bad internet connection, I'm getting some lag here. I'm not getting anybody's comments on whether or not they're okay with public speaking or not. If that microphone would be as frightening as jumping off that cliff with the backpack on your back. I don't know of anyone who's ever died from public speaking, at least not from just the act itself. So I guess it's relatively safe looking at the terms we've been using so far. Carol says he'd rather cage dive than speak in public. Okay, so that puts it into perspective there. He'd rather go down with the sharks than have to get up on that stage and look out at those people and be responsible to start speaking. Because she says it's not for her. So yeah, I had to include that because that really is one of the things that a lot of people include as kind of one of their biggest things, right up there with heights and certain animals or whatever. And Will says he'd do public speaking. So he wouldn't be good at it, but there's nothing like making a fool of yourself in front of a lot of people. Still at least no broken bones. See, I'm with you there. I can make a fool of myself, but at least it's not going to hurt physically when I get off. And I don't know though, Will. I think you'd do a good job at it. You're a good thinker. I think it'd be interesting to hear you. So I think you would do a really good job. Mr. Hughes says my fear would be I would forget what to say. Yep, that's I think what a lot of people struggle with there is just kind of that idea of, oh no, what if I forget what I'm going to say? But again, I don't know of any odds there of actually dying from public speaking. I think more as people would just feel like they're going to and their heart starts racing. To put some of those numbers we put in this perspective, National Safety Council in 2019 said your odds of dying in a motor vehicle crash are 1 in 107. So getting out and driving on the road is pretty dangerous too. That, especially these days, takes a lot of courage. When I say these days, I don't mean to try to imply that things weren't dangerous before, but I don't know, to me it just seems like with the prevalence of phones and more distractions in the car, that it's getting more dangerous to get out on the road, so that's kind of a dangerous thing. Odds of dying, according to the National Center for Health Statistics. No, I'm sorry, this is the National Safety Council actually on this one. Your odds of dying from a hornet, wasp, and bee sting is 1 in 59,507. So you're actually, more likely to die of a wasp, hornet, or a bee sting than you are of bungee jumping. So I'm still not going to go bungee jumping, but your odds of struck by lightning are 1 in 138,849. So you're more likely to be struck by lightning than you are to die bungee jumping. So just some interesting perspective there. Sorry, I know this is taking a lot longer than I thought it would, but it was just fun listening to your comments, seeing what people would say about some of these. I have a long scripture, but a really short topic this evening. So let's jump right into that. I'm going to move the comments off real quick. We're talking about courage. I mentioned before, some of those things aren't necessarily courage. They're just, that need for some kind of excitement or whatever. But when it comes down to courage, things that it really takes to talk to people, to step out on faith, to do something God wants you to do, that's the different type of courage. That's something that says, where do I find that from? And we can't just say, well, I wasn't built with that. We can look at those other things and say, well, I just wasn't made for base jumping. That's just not a part of who I am. I feel pretty comfortable with that. That's not who I am. I'm not going to try to find the courage to do that because I don't need that. But there are times that we think, okay, how do I find the courage to do what God wants me to do? Because those are the things that we need to do, whether we're fearful of them or not. And we'll see Ezra here. I'm going to read all the way through this. It says, now after these things, in the reign of Artaxerxes, king of Persia, Ezra the son of Zerahiah, the son of Azariah, the son of Hilkiah, the son of Shallum, the son of Zadok, the son of Ahitub, the son of Amariah, the son of Azariah, the son of Meriath. Boy, that one got me on the last one. I was doing so good up to that point. The son of Zerahiah, the son of Uzziah, the son of Bukki, the son of Abishua, the son of Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the chief priest. All that to say, Ezra is part of Aaron's family. He's a Levite. He's part of the priestly family of Israel. But Ezra lives in the time of Babylonian exile. The time that the children of Israel have been in Babylon, and now Persia, because the Medes and the Persians came in and took over. They've been there for decades. And so that's telling us who he is. It says, this Ezra. So don't mix him up with any of the other Ezras. But this Ezra went up from Babylon. And he was a ready scribe in the law of Moses, which the Lord God of Israel had given. And the king granted him all his requests according to the hand of the Lord his God upon him. Now, I want us to stop for a minute and notice, he was a ready scribe. He had studied. He had continued to learn to write the law. And that was their job, was to continue to write that law over and over again. So they had copies and they had things people could read, things that could be read to the audience to remind them of the things God had instructed them to do and how to worship him. He was ready because he had continued to study God's word. That's important. Verse 7, he says, and there went up some of the children of Israel, and the priests, and the Levites, and the singers, and the porters, and the Nethinims, unto Jerusalem in the 7th year of Artaxerxes, the king. Again, that's the Persian king there, Artaxerxes. For upon the first day of the first month began he to go up from Babylon. On the first day of the 5th month came he to Jerusalem, according to the good hand of his God upon him. For Ezra had prepared his heart to seek the law of the Lord, and to do it, and to teach in Israel statutes and judgments. Notice, he prepared his heart to do this. He wanted to serve God. He wanted to do what God wanted him to do. There was that desire there. For now this is a copy of the letter that the king Artaxerxes gave unto Ezra the priest, the scribe, even a scribe, of the words of the commandments of the Lord, and of his statutes to Israel. Artaxerxes, king of kings, unto Ezra the priest, a scribe of the law of the God of heaven, perfect peace, and at such a time. I make a decree that all they of the people of Israel, and of his priests and Levites in my realm, which are minded of their own free will to go up to Jerusalem, go with thee. For as much as thou art sent of the king and of his 7 counselors to inquire concerning Judah and Jerusalem, according to the law of thy holy God, which is in thine hand, and to carry the silver and gold which the king and his counselors have freely offered unto the God of Israel, whose habitation is in Jerusalem. So here, the king of Persia is saying, you go back and reestablish your worship there in Jerusalem. Go back and worship your God. That in itself is an amazing thing, to see what God has done in the hearts of these rulers of this empire, to turn them and say, you know what, I'm going to let these people go back and worship, and even the way he describes their God. Verse 16, all the silver and gold thou canst find in all the province of Babylon, with the freewill offerings of the people and the priests, offering willingly for the house of their God which is in Jerusalem. That thou mayest buy speedily with this money bullocks, rams, lambs, and with their meat offerings and their drink offerings, and offer them upon the altar of the house of your God which is in Jerusalem. And whatsoever shall seem good to thee and to thy brethren to do with the rest of the silver and the gold, that do after the will of your God. The vessels also that are given thee for the service of the house of thy God, those deliver thou before the God of Jerusalem. And whatsoever more shall be needful for the house of thy God, which thou shalt have occasion to bestow it out of the king's treasure house. And I, even I, Artaxerxes the king, do make a decree to all the treasures which are beyond the river, that whatsoever Ezra the priest, the scribe of the law of the God of heaven, shall require of you, it be done speedily. And up unto 100 talents of silver, and 100 measures of wheat, to 100 baths of wine, and to 100 baths of oil, and salt, without prescribing how much. Whatsoever is commanded by the God of heaven, let it be diligently done for the house of the God of heaven. For why should there be wrath against the realm of the king and his sons? Also we certify you, that touching any of the priests and Levites, singers, porters, Nethinims, or ministers of this house of God, it shall not be lawful to impose toll, tribute, or custom upon them. And thou, Ezra, after the wisdom of thy God that is in thine hand, set magistrates and judges, which may judge all the people that are beyond the river, all such as know the laws of thy God, and teach ye them that know them not. And whosoever will not do the law of thy God and the law of the king, let judgment be executed speedily upon him, whether it be unto death, or to banishment, or to confiscation of goods, or to imprisonment. So here, Artaxerxes, the ruler of this Persian empire, is saying, I'm giving you this responsibility to turn this back into your laws that you had before. You're still under his laws. As he said, the land, the law of the king. He's still putting his own stamp on this. He's saying, go back and do the things that your God has told you to do, and follow the laws that you have continued to keep and to hold with you. He said, blessed be the Lord God of our fathers, which has put such a thing as this in the king's heart, to beautify the house of the Lord, which is in Jerusalem. So the writer here of Ezra is saying, can you believe what God did? He turned this king, this powerful empire king, and said, you know what? Let's let these people go back and worship their God. We don't know that Artaxerxes believed in Yahweh, that he understood he was the one true God. The wording of that to me kind of makes me feel like he thought it was just another God. They were definitely a very pluralistic society. He believed in a lot of gods, and so he's probably just saying, let's satisfy this God too. You go do that, and that's okay. Obviously, he called himself the King of Kings, so he still has some idea that he's maybe even exalted himself. But at the same time, God has worked through these people that were very brutal and harsh rulers. The Babylonians that had first taken them, we see the stories there. When they would ransack some of these places, they would bash people's heads in with stones. And we see that even in some of the Psalms where they talk about that. And just a harsh empire that God has softened the hearts over time. And now he has Artaxerxes in place, and he's saying, you know what? Send all these people back home. If they want to go home, let them go back to Jerusalem. Let them go back and set up their laws that I've given them. God had done an amazing work right here. In verse 28 it says, and hath extended mercy unto me before the king and his counselors, and before all the king's mighty princes. And I was strengthened as the hand of the Lord my God was upon me. And I gathered together out of Israel chief men to go up with me. Ezra's writing this, and he says, God has changed this king's heart, and this king has given me mercy, and God has given me mercy to be able to stand before this king and his advisors, and to get this letter that not only says you can go back, but actually says no one can hurt you, and you have power to enact your own laws and police those laws. And in fact, you can even use some of our treasury to start getting things going. We're giving you kind of a checkbook here to buy some of the supplies. That's the thing God was doing. It was an amazing work. And notice Ezra's comment here. He says, and I was strengthened. He had courage. He had motivation. He says, I knew I could do this. This was a big task. He's going from Babylon to Jerusalem. He's lived all his life in Babylon. He never grew up in Jerusalem. Babylon was his home, and he'd been there. And now he's going to this new place to start this new thing, which was really an old thing, but that had not been done in at least 70 years. And here he says, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do this. God wants me to establish his nation again. Now I can do this. He said, I had the courage. Why? As the hand of thy Lord was upon me. He didn't get his courage because King Artaxerxes was helping him. It wasn't because the king said this or that. No, it was that God was at work. Notice before we saw He had already prepared himself. He had already been studying God's Word. He knew what God was saying to him. He had already been writing the law. He had already been practicing and knowing exactly what it said. So when it was time to do it, he was able to do it. He was staying close to what God had given him. That law was what they had about who God was. For us, that would be similar to walking in the Spirit, letting God direct us and lead us and guide us. Because he had done all that, he saw God working and he said, you know what? I can do this. Not because I'm anything special, not because of anything around me, not because the king's even special, but because God is at work. That's what I want to encourage you today. If God's challenging you to do something, might even be a little bit out of your comfort zone, a little bit scary, step out and do it. Not because of who you are, not because of some ability you have or don't have, but because God is working in your life. And God can do amazing things through people who let him do that. Ezra is a perfect example of that. God doing something special. He's just a priest. He's not a ruler. He's not a person to set up a government. He's going back to establish the nation of Israel because God wanted him to. Hope this week is a good week for you. Hope it's one you can gain some courage and confidence to do whatever it is God's putting on your heart. I mentioned before, I don't know what those things are, but I hope you'll take some time to say, okay, God, how do you want to use me? And when he gives you that answer, take courage because the hand of the Lord is upon you. Hope you have a great week. Sorry this went a little bit longer tonight, but I hope it was an encouragement to you. Backing up in any way, don't hesitate to reach out. And we will talk again next Sunday. I love you all. Have a good week.